Good afternoon and good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty360. Welcome to our ongoing Thought Leadership and Loyalty Series. Today we have Mr. Phil Rubin from rDialogue. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. The first question we have is the concept of loyalty dead today?
It's a great question. It's a question we've heard a lot from clients, from prospects, from people in and around the marketing industry. And we wouldn't say that loyalty is dead, but certainly in a lot of categories, loyalty is getting a lot harder. Just pick retail as one industry example. Retail's become, it's always been, but it's become such an intensely price competitive business that you see promotion trumps and overpowers any kind of brand loyalty voice that's out there. You look at what some of the recent news, some of even, a loyalty and brand leader like a Nordstrom moving away from what it uniquely did, which was only having 2 sales a year, having semi-annual sales, moving from that to having really about 7 promotional periods. They're becoming just like everyone else, which means that they're resorting to competing on price. And that's really pervasive throughout most retail categories, certainly more mass merchants, popular price, even some of the upscale, if you look at the level of promotion coming from even luxury department stores, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus. So this whole idea of being just like everyone else, that is really a death knell. It's sort of the antithesis of loyalty. Integration's still a challenge, but really the biggest problem is irrelevance, and that is that brands are having a really difficult time leveraging data to be meaningful and meaningfully engage their customers. So assuming you have a decent product and brand, the key to avoiding death, and really when we're talking about death here, we're talking about death of loyal customers and death of profitability, because that's ultimately the victim of discounting, means you've got to leverage data, you've got to be relevant to the customer. And of course, you have to do basic things. You have to at least say what and how you're going to deliver to your clients. But it's a challenge. And when you see brands continuing to follow and do the same thing that everybody else is doing, that still makes it really difficult.
Excellent. I have a quick follow-up question on that, if you don't mind. One of the things that we see, and I'm sure you see as well, is brands truly understanding their customers, the ability to them to listen. You talk about data. Data has become almost banal from a perspective of the brands. They hear about it on a daily basis, structured, unstructured, what have you. But creating that actionable insight that allows them to listen and truly understand their customer, that is one of the biggest challenges that we see. Any advice there on brands on that one?
Well, that sort of gets to the essence of, or the reason for having some sort of published loyalty proposition. If you have the right kind of loyalty proposition, customers are going to raise their hand. They're going to identify themselves, not just in terms of an opt-in, but in terms of that permission to be tracked, right? We can all go to our browsers now and we can say, I do not want to be tracked. The right brand proposition is going to get at least the right customers, those who are willing to engage, to allow themselves to be tracked. The challenge, though, and you touched on this, is are the brands able to take the data, and in some cases it's a lot of data, in some cases it's not as much data, but can they take the data and use that to discern different appropriate segments of customers? Because by definition, loyalty marketing is built around the idea of customer differentiation. And in our view, the way you define loyalty marketing is really, it's the strategy and the strategy and tactics around paying attention to customers and acting accordingly. And what that means is when you pay attention to customers and collect the data on the customers and use the data, then you can basically treat customers accordingly, which means treating them, based on their realized value, based on their potential value, based on service recovery, based on what they're buying, when they're buying, how they're buying, who they're advocating for, what their social behavior looks like, all those types of data. But it's got to go from not using any data to using data really is a stair-step process. It's evolutionary. It's a different mindset for a lot of brands who think, oh, well, if I can send some email, that's good. If I can send more email, that's better. And typically when that more is really homogenized and it's taking the same message and just blasting it out to everybody, that is the antithesis of relevant dialogue.
Excellent. So the next question, it sounds like I should know the answer to this, but is loyalty alive, and where is the next evolution in loyalty?
So loyalty is alive for certain brands and for certain businesses. Loyalty is alive when you've got the right set of ingredients, which really starts for us with leadership. It starts with having at a senior level, at a C level, CEO, CMO, CIO, and often a board level, where there is a stated, explicit prioritization around the customer and prioritization that being customer-centric is going to drive the business strategy, that in and of itself is a business strategy. So it takes leadership, and this is where, while there's certain industries that are really challenged from a loyalty standpoint, within any industry, there are leaders who believe in customer marketing being central to the business strategy, and that's where loyalty is alive. The next place that loyalty is alive is where there are challenger brands focused on using customer marketing as a way to close the gap between where they sit and where the leadership brands take. And then, of course, once you've got the commitment and you've got the strategy in place, you've got to have the right enablement, you've got to have the right resources, you've got to have the right commitment. It's not a quarter-by-quarter thing. It's something that takes time to do. So there's definitely brands where loyalty is alive. The challenge is, for so many, they're dead, and what happens, especially with the proliferation of programs out there, I think it was 22.4 in the last colloquy census, 22.4 programs per household, is that it ultimately sets a higher bar on the part of consumer and even B2B customer expectations that the brands are going to actually pay attention to them.
Excellent. A quick follow-up to that one as well. One of the things that I'm sure you see as well, there's this kind of a clarion call for simplicity. Brands want simplicity. They want to understand the customer's unique way. There's so much data. Brands are trying to get that commitment. They're trying to get that buy-in. But we talk about this corner butcher store mentality where, growing up, you may have went with your father or grandfather to the butcher store, and it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He knew exactly what he wanted, when he wanted it in those days. But now, with so much data, with all that noise, that challenge of listening, how do you help, or how do you make brands kind of focus on the simplicity of ease, of creating those unique experiences? In this age of ever-growing complexity, more data, more technologies. You mentioned, kind of defined ROI on some programs. How do you help them reach that, opportune moment of simplicity?
Well, the idea is to make it more simple for the customer. That doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily simple for the company or for the brand. Couple comments. Certainly number one is, if you go back to our definition of loyalty, paying attention to customers and acting accordingly. Your corner butcher shop example, the butcher paid attention to the customers, and he knew that if the Johnson family walked in on Wednesday, they were there to buy chicken or whatever. That is what's incumbent on the brands to do, and it really goes to where we see loyalty going, and that is flipping the model. The old model said, I'm a brand. If you, customer, are going to be loyal to me, the brand, to us, the brand, then we'll reward you. Our view is that model flips, and it's really incumbent on the brand to be loyal to customers. And that doesn't mean that a brand has to be loyal to every customer, but it's up to the brand, and this is where data and technology and capabilities come in. The brands have to figure out, based on what customers buy, with what goods and services, at what prices, through what channels, i.e. customer profitability and customer size, metrics like that, which customers the brand should be loyal to, and the brands need to pay it forward more. And another way to think about the value proposition, this goes directly to your point, which I think is a valid one, that a lot of companies have no business case around loyalty. Loyalty strategy and loyalty marketing really can be thought of as an investment guide to customers. And that's really the value. And that's a value that doesn't just sit within marketing. That's a value that gets appreciated by a CFO. It gets appreciated by stockholders. It gets appreciated by boards of directors.
Excellent. Very succinct and very spot on. Last question we have for you today. What makes you loyal aside to the Saints, and what brands are you loyal to aside the Saints?
Well, besides the Saints, I'm loyal to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll talk about that in a minute. This isn't going to surprise you based on what I've said already. The brands that I'm loyal to are the brands that are loyal to me. And it's really as simple as that. It's brands that you have a high level of trust in. It's brands that you know are paying attention to you, and they have a reasonably accurate gauge to your value. So, you live in Cincinnati. We're both Delta Diamond Medallion level Sky Miles members. Delta does an exceptionally good job of being loyal to me. I know that if something goes awry in my travel plans, they're going to be there to back me up, to fix it. They're going to differentiate me at every point in my experience, from booking through travel and post-trip, where they recognize me, they thank me by name, just like you when you walk on the plane. They call out and recognize that you're Diamond. They thank you for your loyalty. Sometimes one of the pilots will come back and do that very thing. But they also do a lot of other things, right? You get upgrades that if you're like me and you I took a very long international trip in Q4, booked it in coach, got the last upgrade to business class. That upgrade was worth about $3,500. And that is something that is reflective of them seeing how much business I've done. They'll pick you up in a Porsche occasionally and drive you to your car. They just sent out an invite to a private concert here in Atlanta at the Delta Museum with John Legend. There's even, and this isn't a Delta sponsored thing, but Delta participates in it. There's an unpublished Diamond Medallion Facebook group, which is consisting of nothing but members like you and I who are flying 100, 200,000 miles a year. And that community piece is also a huge part of it. Kimpton Hotels, we've done work with them for a long time. There's a new program out there called Karma. If you're in their top tiers, they do great things for you. They take care of you. They protect your rooms. They upgrade you. Last couple weeks ago, I checked into one of their properties in Seattle. They had a flight of single malt scotches, 12, 15, 18 years old, of the same brand of scotch, because they know I'm a scotch drinker. Those are the types of things that really make the difference and say that they appreciate and pay attention to me as a guest. In retail, Amazon's probably the best example. Even though people think Amazon overdoes it at times, they make the experience of shopping and their ability to remind you of things that are more considered purchases very easy, and they keep them top of mind. And when we see brands out there like what the Steelers are doing with Steelers Nation Unite, these are really loyalty programs that are designed so that your organization can pay attention to customers, to fans, and recognize the difference between somebody who's a season ticket holder, somebody who's watching a game in Heinz Field, and somebody who's watching a game in a sports bar in Atlanta. And so those are the types of examples that for me, the brands that I'm really happy to spend money with. And I think this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. It's about being willing to pay full price and feeling like you've got full value from that investment. And that's where a lot of these brands, you get what you pay for. And part of what loyalty drives is the willingness to pay for value that comes at a premium.
Excellent. Well, Phil, as always, great talking to you. Great insight here. We look forward to hearing more from you in 2015 and look forward to seeing you in March or April at the Loyalty Expo.
Sounds good. I look forward to it too, Mark.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.